I get started? Well, I'd have to say, I don't remember actually. I'd have to go with what my family says. I guess I was about 4 or 5 years old when I started to play organ in my grandmother's house. And as soon as I could recognize colors, I had one of those little color charts on the keyboard and started to play organ for quite a while. But I think I found my first passion was percussion and drums. And I started to play drums for quite a while and percussion. And we recognized that I couldn't go to somebody's house and entertain them on a set of drums. So I started focusing back on piano and writing music and things of that sort. I was about 17 years old and I started to play with an originals band and found that I was pretty good at writing music, and I started to write originals for Steve Gunner's band, Kruger. Since then done a lot of scoring and small projects, corporate projects, things of that sort. It was 2002 and I performed David Foster's Symphony Session at Las Vegas at the Rio in front of about 3,000 people. And I think it was then that I decided that I wanted to really focus on my own music and start to write my own music, my own albums, perform my own music. And I was very fortunate to become good friends with a gentleman, Russ Friedman, from the Rippingtons, and spent a lot of time with him. We actually played golf about every day for 6 months together, and I saw his genius in writing, and I really started to appreciate contemporary jazz and smooth jazz, spending time with him and being with him in his studio and things. So I think that's about when I really decided, I'm going to focus more on that area, and started to go down that path. I'd have to say my inspiration for this album came from spending time with friends and family out at Abaco, Bahamas. We were diving out there, and I think the atmosphere and the people and the places we stayed, and spending time in the water and the beaches, and just being with great friends, it gave me a really good inspiration for. I know I wanted to do a jazz album with a pop or a ballad feel, and that's kind of where it came from, and I took it from there. Almost originally was a fast 4/4 contemporary jazz tune, and I know that I wanted to have some vocals on this album, so I called a good friend of mine, Tony Sellers, who's a great singer-songwriter, and asked her if she'd want to be on the album and write some lyrics and things for the song, and she did. And I spent about a week, and I just created some scratch tracks with just some piano and drums and sent it to her, and we turned it into more of a 3/4 jazz ballad. It was a little bit more of a swing to it. We gave it that more of a jazz ballad, 3/4 time, put some horns in it, some orchestra arrangements, and she came over, we sat at my piano, and she just hit it first time. I mean, she nailed it. Vocals were great. We knew that we didn't have to change a thing, and tracks are just like that, didn't change anything, and that's where Almost came into the picture, and it's probably one of the better songs on the album from a ballad standpoint. Mystic Cove is probably my favorite on the album. It's a very dense, very intricate tune. There was a good pop flair to it, very strong beat to it, some super percussion. We did some great jazz, horn section in there. And I was on the Warren Hill Smooth Jazz Cruise, and I met a great guitarist there, a flamenco jazz guitarist. His name is Art Hansen. and he was just a phenomenal player. And I asked him one night we were there, would he play on the album, and he said he'd love to. And that's how Eric came to be on the album. And when he came over and played and played some of the solos and leads, he was just right on. And he really gave the album the jazz flair that I was looking for, and also the edgy contemporary flair that I was looking for on the album. So I was very fortunate to have him on there. It's a very powerful 6/8 tune. I definitely wanted to have some diversity in the album. We have some 3/4 in there, the ballad, a lot of 4/4, and I wanted to make sure we had a 6/8 on there with some edgy percussion and some good sax. And I had a good friend of mine that was coming down for a concert we were doing in Fort Lauderdale, Jeff Cashua, and asked me if he'd come down a couple days earlier and recorded the album. And he came down and really was right on and gave the album a flair that I think was important. Kind of a sleeper tune. I wrote that in about 15 minutes. Jeff Cashel was on his way from the airport, and I knew that I wanted to have him on one more tune. So I banged out these chords real quick, and when he got there, I said, let's play some leads on this and see how it comes out. And it ended up being one of the favorites for a lot of people on the album. I got a call from my lawyer, Marlene Cassidy, and she had a producer in Miami call me, Rachel Farah. And she said, you really ought to consider having Sammy Figueroa on the album, who's a Grammy-nominated percussionist. And I said, sure, let's do this. Let's bring him in. And Sammy really gave this tune a great percussion sound that we were looking for, and it really kind of brought this tune together. And I was glad to have him on there. And then he eventually played on the other tracks in the album as well. The track Smooth was the first track I wrote for the album, probably about mid-2005, and I got it to a point that I could call my friend Russ Friedman from the Rippingtons and said, come on over, I want to have you playing this track. And he came over and I laid out the charts for him, and he started to play, and he just nailed it. I mean, he was right on, and Russ Friedman's just an incredible guitarist and songwriter, and he really gave the Smooth, the flair that I wanted and the flair that I was looking for, and it ended up being a great track on the album. I think the album really came together when we had the engineers and the mixers and stuff get involved in the mastering. We had Mark Ruffalo from DAW Studios and Hal Batt from After Hours Studios and Mastering House with Jose, and really fine-tuned the album and brought it all together, and real happy with the sound of it, and getting some great reviews, and people love what we've done with the album.